I warmed it up for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Chodesh Tov, everybody. Chodesh Tov. And happy birthday, Paladina. It's so nice to have you here. Yuri, thank you so much for arranging and asking me to speak. It's so nice. And Dad, thank you so much. And Lara and Lisa, thanks for coming. Okay, so we'll get started. Rosh Chodesh is one of my most favorite times of the year because what we've learned is that it's always a time to renew ourselves. It's a new energy. And I didn't know this until I started learning Kabbalah that, I always thought the year was just this one big year, when really it's chunks of time, and each month has its own unique energy and its own unique potential that we're meant to reveal. And if you have the right consciousness, then you can make the most out of it. So Elul is a very special month. It's a very special month, and I see it as a month for us to reconnect with who we truly are, our highest self, which is our neshama. It's the way for us to really connect to Hashem from a pure place. What I love the most about Elul is that it's to me it's a love story. When you learn it from a Kabbalistic perspective, you see that it's really a love story of love lost and reunited. The way that we learn this in Kabbalah is that there's this concept of the awakening from below and the awakening from above. And there was an awakening from above in Nisan when we received, when we came out of Egypt, and when we received the Torah, Hashem was coming towards us. There was an awakening from above to the below. And then we lost that grace. We lost it with the golden calf. And then we needed to redeem ourselves and our connection with Hashem, and we did that through Moshe, who went up to Har Sinai and asked Hashem for forgiveness. And he went up today on Rosh Chodesh Elul, actually yesterday. He went up, and for 40 days he prayed. And on Yom Kippur, Hashem said, Salachti kitbarecha. I forgive as you've asked. So we know that because of that unique experience, we constantly have an opportunity to renew our connection with Hashem and go back to that innocent place. I also teach Kabbalah and astrology, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what it has to say about Elul. In Kabbalah, the sign for Elul is Virgo, which is in Hebrew the Betula, the Virgin, which represents how we're supposed to interact with Hashem in this month. This is the month where we can go back to a place of purity, a place of innocence and modesty, where we can be back to that initial place on Har Sinai. The Virgos are very unique signs. Virgo people, I don't know if there's any Virgos in the house?
Well, in Hebrew, I'm a Virgo.
Oh, and in English?
I'm a Leo.
Oh.
Awesome.
So let me tell you a little bit about yourself, girl.
Go ahead, I'd love to know.
So Virgos are perfectionists, and they have very high standards. They have very high standards for themselves and very high standards for other people. So therefore, the good thing is that they love to see order. They like to see structure, order. They're really into beauty. A lot of people that are into like design or architecture, they're people who pay attention to a lot of the details in life, but they struggle with big picture in general. So with the Virgos, what we learn is that we need to be very thorough in our spiritual practice this month. The Virgos are people who are very hardworking, like they get things done. Like let's say you had a book and you needed to be proofread, a Virgo would be a perfect person. They have the patience and the tenacity to really get a job done, like meticulously, like very, very focused. And that's in essence what we're supposed to do this month as well, is be very meticulous in our spiritual process, in our spiritual cleansing. We know that this is a time of Tshuva, and a lot of times we associate with Tshuva like a very heavy process, like we're supposed to beat ourselves up, and it's this whole like process that nobody really looks forward to. But it's really an opportunity. It's an amazing opportunity for us to reflect, to assess. After a year of going, and doing, we're finally, taking a time out to say, okay, this has been an amazing year. What's been good? What's been not so good? What have I learned from this year? What are my relationships like? And and we have a long time. We have 40 days to go through this process, so you don't have to do it overnight. You have 40 days to really take time out and reflect. And it shouldn't be a heavy process. Like, look at it from a place of joy. The word Elul is actually it's Aramaic, but not Aramaic. There's another ancient language that precedes Aramaic, but I don't remember what it is. But Elul,
Sanskrit.
What is it?
Sanskrit.
Could be. And Elul is like a very ancient name that represents searching, and it also represents joy. So that's what this month is about. It's a month of joyful exploration of our soul, like a joyful spiritual practice of assessing what have we done this year and how can we make it better. We're going to get into astrology a little bit now. I hope we don't. Who's into astrology here? Anybody like astrology? Obviously.
We kind of stay away from it because we know that halachically it's a no-no. Like, you can't believe that astrology determines what you should be doing.
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up because, in essence, like what I teach is completely rooted in Judaism, and a lot of people don't know that there is such a rich heritage of Jewish astrology. And one of the greatest teachers and writers of Jewish astrology is the Ibn Ezra. He's written tons of books about it. The Ramchal also talks about it, and there's tons of references to it in the Talmud. So since you brought it up, I'll give a little background just so people, because I am going to go really deep into astrology. So we believe that En Mazal Le'Israel, there is no, we're not under the influence of the Mazal. Mazal means what?
Stars.
What? Stars. What else?
Destiny.
What did you say?
The energy comes down.
Energy comes down, right? It comes from the Hebrew word of nozel. Hi, Diane. It comes from the Hebrew word nozel, which means to flow. And the mazal is the way that we try to understand the concept of how the spiritual world impacts the physical world. And it's that relationship. So what we've learned in Judaism is that everything in the world is cause and effect. There's like for every action there's a reaction. And the mazalat is like in the Torah it talks, in the Talmud it talks about people that are born under the sign of Aries, for example. They say people who are born under the sign of Aries have the nature of killers. And you're like, that's crazy. Like, what do you mean? So everyone who's an Aries is, God forbid, a killer? No. It means that we all come into this world with a certain nature, a teva. And I'm sure a lot of you as moms have seen that as you were raising children, that your kids were born with a certain personality, a certain thing that had nothing to do with you. It was just who they were. And even as young as like babies, you could already see the personality. So we all come into this world with a certain teva. And the way that it impacts us is that it gives us a certain preferences and a certain nature, and we always have the free choice to decide what are we going to do with this nature that we have. So for example, in the Talmud, if someone is an Aries and they have this sort of nature where they are like fierce fighters, or they're not afraid to kill, the way that they can transform that is they can be a mohel, or they can be a butcher. Right? Or they could be a surgeon. I've been learning astrology for a really long time, and I've only met a handful of surgeons, and I'll just randomly be like, "You're an Aries, right?" And they would be like, "Yeah, how did you know?" And I'm on like yeah. So as you learn this kind of stuff, you see that there's a lot of things that keep coming up for certain personality types. So the point is that it's about using what we are and using it for the good or the bad. It's up to us, but the nature is already there. But what does that mean in Mazal Israel? It means that this applies to the whole world except for us. What's so unique about us? That we have a connection with Hashem that is contingent on our spirituality, on the way that we observe the Torah and the mitzvah. So, when it says in Mazal Israel, there's a condition. If a person follows the path of Torah and the mitzvot, then they're rising above the influence of the Mazal. But if a person is not in that level, or not conscious of their actions, or not connected in that way, then they fall under that influence just like everybody else. I look at it from the perspective of we all have our strengths and our weaknesses, and there's different ways to discover who you are. And there's things like the Enneagram and the Myers-Briggs, and there's so many different ways that we can learn about ourselves and discover ourselves. And I look at astrology as just one aspect. But what's deeper about astrology is that there's a lot of Kabbalah that's related to astrology, like the Zohar refers to it. And since you brought it up, I'll just, not to give a lesson about astrology, but it is very fascinating. There is a book, a very ancient Kabbalah book called Sefer Yetzirah, which is the book of formation. Have any of you ever heard of this book? Yes? Mm-hmm. So this book is attributed to Avraham Avinu. And we don't know if it actually was Avraham Avinu, but it's referenced as Avraham Avinu. And we know that Avraham knew astrology, because when Hashem took him outside to look at the stars, and he said, "Look in the stars, your children will be greater than the stars," he had to see it. Hashem had to tell him that, because he knew astrology, and he believed that he didn't see in the stars that he would have a child from Sarah. That's why when Hashem brought the angels and no, it wasn't with the angels, it was before that. When Hashem told him that he would have a child, he said, "Lu Ishmael Yechi." May Hashem let Ishmael live, because he didn't see it, he couldn't believe it. So Hashem showed him, no, now that you are connected, now that you're part of the Jewish people, or you're the father of the Jewish people, you're going to rise above that influence regardless. So the Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation, is a whole book on the 12 months, and every single month has a particular assignment. So in the book of the Sefer Yetzirah, it talks about which planet controls that month, which letter controls that month. So is that weird for you guys to hear that letters rule months? Does that make sense, or is that weird? It's weird. So I also thought that was really weird. But then I started learning Kabbalah, and Kabbalah teaches the importance of the Hebrew letters. That the Hebrew letters are not just a language that we communicate with, but that the Hebrew letters are actually channels for spiritual energy into the world, which is why davening is so powerful. That when our speech and our prayers have great power, and Kabbalah is hyper-focused on this concept of words and letters. And in Kabbalah, or specifically in Sefer Yetzirah, we learn that every month has a specific letter that is connected to that month and that rules that month, and that it was created through that letter. Is that weird to you guys, or does that make sense?
Makes sense.
So the letter for this month, there's two letters for this month. There's the Resh and the Yud. The Resh is connected to Mercury, and the Yud is connected to Virgo. So I'm not going to go into it too much, but I'll start with the letter Yud. The letter Yud is in every one of the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And the letter Yud is also part of Hashem's name. The letter Yud also has a numerical value of 10, and in Kabbalah 10 is a very deep number because it represents the 10 different aspects of creation. So what do we know? What does that mean? This month is ruled by the letter Yud. Yud is also connected to Chochmah, the aspect of wisdom in the world. So we know that this month is about acquiring wisdom. And the Yud is really small. It's like a little dot, actually. So there's a couple of things we can learn from that letter. One is that it represents humility. That in order for you to have wisdom, you need to be humble. You need to let go of your ego and recognize that there's something for you to learn, and that you need to change yourself and to be receptive to the world. That is another aspect of, like, Virgo actually is the only feminine month of the year. It's the only sign that actually represents femininity. So that means, Kabbalah interprets that this is a very receptive month. This is a month where we're supposed to receive a lot of grace, a lot of mazal, a lot of goodness. And it follows right after Av and Tammuz, which are like really heavy, dark. We've felt it, right? It's been a really crazy, like I just think about it, I get chills. It's been such a tremendously negative time for our people. Just today, I'm not going to go into it, but I feel like every day there's new stories that are just like heartbreaking, that it's such a relief to like go into Elul and to be able to go to a time and space in our lives where we know that Hashem is close to us. So, so like I said, it's a love story. And they say that Elul is a time when the king is in the fields, which means what?
He's close to us.
He's among his people.
He's among his people. And in Rosh Hashana, the king is sitting on his, is sitting in his, what's it called? His throne, right. Is sitting in his throne. So what does that represent?
It could be interpreted as a place of judgment or a place of being separate. You assume that a throne is above sometimes.
Exactly. So right now, if he's in the fields, this is our special time to connect. This is an opportunity. Hashem is not in the fields the whole year. There's a reason why we have that saying, because it's true. Like Hashem wants to connect with us before He judges us. So this is our opportunity to really make the most out of this time. I wanted to just go back to what, just another astrology thing, and I'll move on from the astrology. The month of, this month is ruled by the planet Mercury. Mercury, does anybody know what Mercury represents?
War.
War? No,
No,
Mars is war. What is Mercury? Communication. I actually learned astrology from Lisa and her family. Like, they all speak astrology. It's like their language. So Mercury in Hebrew is the word kochav, which means, kochav means a star, just a star. Like, they're all stars, but Mercury for some reason gets the name of kochav. Now, kochav is broken into two different segments, kav vav and kav bet. Kav vav in gematria is 26, and kav bet 22. What is 26? That's Hashem's name, the Yud Vav Kei. And what is 22? The letters of the alphabet. So what's the connection here? There's a combination on this month between the energy of Hashem, which represents light and goodness, and maybe I should rephrase it. In Kabbalah, there's this concept of orot and kelim, light and vessel, that Hashem wants to give to us, and that we're supposed to receive from Hashem. And so we're the kelis, we're the vessels to receive Hashem. Hashem just wants to give us goodness and everything that we want. Why don't we have everything that we want? Because our keli needs to be worked on. Our keli needs to expand, or to be cleaned up, or to grow. So our life is about transforming our keli, transforming our vessel. So the kav vav and the kav bet represent the Yud Vav Kei represents Hashem's energy of the lights, and the chav bet, which are the Hebrew letters, represent the vessels, the channels for that energy. So what does that mean? That means that this is a time of a union between the light and the vessel, between the masculine and the feminine. So whenever the masculine and the feminine get together, there's a lot of goodness going on. There's a lot of bracha. So, so one of the things that Kabbalah teaches us is that this is et ratzon. This is a time of desire. So a lot of people interpret it as a time that's a good time to pray, just like Friday night is considered et ratzon. But it goes even deeper. Rosh Hashana is considered the first day of creation. And we all know that before you get to the point of creation, what do you need to have before you can create?
The intention, the vision.
Intention and vision and
A blueprint.
a what?
A blueprint?
A blueprint. But right, that's all like mental. But really, it comes from desire. If you want to do something, you have to want it first. You have to have a desire for the thing before you can actually do anything, or even think of an idea. You have to have the desire for it. So this is considered the time of desire, meaning that Elul was the time when the intention spiritually was set for the world to be created. Now, how powerful is that? Like, that's just blew me away when I learned that.
It's also like 40 days in the womb too, like before the baby's born. So like even before you have a baby, you have like the intention. That's like whatever. I'm talking. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Go on.
No, that was it. Like the intention. Like if you like want to have a child or like conceive whatever, like you have to have the intention. Like I want to bring a new soul into the world. So that's like beautiful. Like we're Hashem's children and we're about to be brought into the world.
Exactly. No, that's actually what it is. And it's one of the reasons why they say that Hayom Harat Olam. It's one of the phrases we say in Rosh Hashana in the davening, that today the world was pregnant. Harat comes from the word harayon, which means pregnancy. So the desire is Elul, the pregnancy is Rosh Hashana, and the birth is Nisan. According to Kabbalah, that's the process. So this is the time when we're moving towards Hashem, and Nisan is when Hashem is moving towards us. It's that cycle. So, like you said, it is about the 40 days, and those 40 days are very powerful. And one second, I just want to review something. It is a lot like I said, Anila Dodi V'Dodi Li. One of the things that I've learned from one of my teachers is that it's like a love relationship. And the 4 different letters of Anila, Dodi, and Dodi Li can be broken into the 4 steps to have a healthy relationship. Is that interesting? Would you like to hear that?
Yes.
Because I loved it. It was the first time I ever learned this. I thought it was fascinating. So the 4 steps to a healthy relationship. In this relationship, obviously, all relationships are the same. Whether it's between a husband and a wife, a mother and child, between us and Hashem, all relationships have the same principle. So the first step in a relationship is the ani. Ani means the I. You first need to know who you are. Before you can get into a relationship, you first need to know who you are and to have a sense of self and to love yourself. You can't give to another person if you don't have anything to give. You first need to know who you are. So that's what we do in Elul. We first need to recognize who we are and what it is that we represent, what it is that we have to give. The second part is ledodi. Ledodi means, how do I relate to my partner or to the person I'm in the relationship? How do I relate to Hashem? Ledodi means it's time for you to be receptive to your partner. What does that mean? Accepting them for who they are, listening to them, not judging them, creating time and space for them in your life. So we can do the same with Hashem. If you want to have a relationship with Hashem, you need to make time for Hashem. You need to respect what Hashem represents and what Hashem wants from us. It's the other, having the space for the other. That's ledodi. V'dodi li means, how does your partner impact you? Now that you're in this relationship, are you going to allow this person to have an influence on you? Are you going to learn from them? Because the other always has something new and different to share with you. So are you going to be receptive to that? Are you going to allow that to integrate into who you are? So what does that mean as far as Elul? It means that this is a time when we have to know who we are. We have to stop, reflect, think about the last year, and think about what just happened. Things happened to me. I created some scenarios. What happened with my relationships? Who are the people that I need to reach out to? Who are the people that I want to develop a closer relationship with? Like, it's considered a time for a cheshbon nefesh, a time for a spiritual accounting. So what do we do in Elul? What are the actual actions? One of the things we learn in Kabbalah is for every single one of the months, there's a specific action that we're supposed to do, a specific thing that we're going to focus on. So for example, Pesach, the energy of Pesach is all about speech.
I thought it was cool.
That too. Pesach is really about telling the story of Pesach and passing it down. It's really the energy of speech. So for the month of Elul was about action. It's not just like, oh, let me sit at home and think about it. No, you actually have to do things. You actually have to go out there and actually make a change in your life and do things differently. So how do you do that? What do? We have slichot. Sephardis, I should say, have slichot starting tomorrow, which I love. And what we also have is the shofar. Started today, right? Mm-hmm. Shofar in Shachar is blown, I think, 4 times in the morning. I don't know. I guess
just
no.
one.
Oh, so I guess one set. Okay, one set is blown. So what's the point of that? We all know that when we hear the shofar, there's something so powerful about it that just like shakes us up and makes us want to cry. Like, it's just like, it's such it just goes straight to your soul. It just like really moves you. And there's a reason why we have that custom, because it's like, you don't want to wait until Rosh Hashana to feel that. You want to feel that now, so that by the time you get to Rosh Hashana, you're like, yeah, Hashem, I'm ready for you. I'm ready. Like, I worked on myself. I thought about everything. I know what I want for this year, and this is what I'm going to be great this year. This is going to be the best year ever. So another thing that we learned this month is after Moshe came down from Har Sinai on Yom Kippur, Hashem taught him the prayer of the Yud Gimel Midot Rachamim, the 13 principles of mercy. And what did we learn from that? We learned that it's never too late to change. Hashem will always give us a second chance. Hashem basically gave us hope that even though we messed up big time, we always have a chance to come back to Him. We always have an opportunity to transform ourselves and to change. But we can't just expect to show up on Rosh Hashana and for everything to be forgiven. We actually have to earn it. We actually have to do something about it. So what's the first thing we should do? What do you think is the number one thing that we should focus on in Elul?
Forgiveness.
That's right. Who said that? Oh, good. Exactly. Terry. Sorry. Hi, Terry.
Hi.
That was really good. I would have thought of other things, but yeah, forgiveness is number one. It's a two-way forgiveness. One aspect is forgiving yourself, not giving yourself such a hard time for not getting everything right and all the things that we messed up on. It's okay. Don't be so hard on yourself. It's not going to serve you to beat yourself up. The best thing you can do is just look back and say, okay, that wasn't great. I could have done better with that, and just learn from it and move on and be energized by that process rather than beating yourself up. So first of all, forgive yourself. Then, that's, I'm sure, going to be easy. Then the hardest, okay, maybe not for everybody. Because it's to do with low self-esteem and not feeling like you're good enough and all that negative self-talk that we have, that we need to put aside. So the second aspect of forgiveness is forgiveness between us and other people. People who wronged us, people who hurt us. And it's especially hard when we know we're right. But
What do you mean? You're always right.
I actually had such a moment today. I thought I was like, Hashem is testing me. I had such a moment of like an interaction with someone really close to me, not my husband, who it just really was pushing my buttons, and I was like, Hashem, you're really testing me now. Like, you know, I'm learning all this stuff. It's like, okay, now you got to do this. You know, it was like really harsh criticism, and I was like, you know, but then I was like, okay, bring it on. I can take this. I'm prepared. It's Elul, you know. But it was a bit much. But anyway, the point is that I'm just saying that that's the energy of Elul. You can either, there are people who aren't here. There are people who are not learning what to do and don't have the consciousness of how to use this month. So they're feeling the energy of that this month. Like when it comes to the month of Virgo, everyone's feeling Virgo. Whether you're a Virgo or not, you're going to feel judgment. You're going to feel that. You're going to feel it. Or if you're doing the spiritual work, you're going to feel the other aspect, which is the closeness to Hashem, the spiritual cleansing. You're going to feel that. It's up to you. You decide which side you want to be on. We have a concept in Torah called midah keneged midah, measure for measure. That the way that you act towards others is the way that Hashem will reciprocate towards you. So Dafka now is the best time to call up that person that you haven't spoken to in like ages, or call up that friend who you really feel like you need to repair that relationship with. This is the time, even if you don't want to be best friends with them, even if you don't want to have like such a close relationship, but at least to heal it to the point where it's not on your chest. It's not blocking you, that it's not weighing on you, that you know that you've dealt with it, you got it out of the air, and it's not there anymore. That negativity is released and it's gone. This is the time to do the spiritual house cleaning. Terry.
What happens if that person is literally toxic and unreasonable and mean-spirited? I mean, I have people like that. I just know people like that in my life, and I've maybe several times, whether they're family or at home.
I think that you don't need to be so close with them, but I think it's important to reach out to them and serve as a model for kindness, serve as a model for forgiveness and goodness, even though it's super hard. But Dafka, the Ari says that whatever the level of darkness is the level for goodness. Those people have the potential to turn around and be better. It might not be easy for them, it might not be in their nature to be like that, but just like someone has like a really strong Yetzer Hara, they have a really strong Yetzer Tov, right?
We're talking about people who are not spiritual in the least, who are like no spiritual focus, energy, nothing.
This is not about spirituality. This is about kindness and being a good person and trying to repair a relationship. There's a reason why that person is in your life. Like everyone in your life is there for a reason, and it's up to you to decide what you're going to do with that. You could either ignore it. I mean, you can use your best judgment, and you'll know what's the right thing to do. I know in my experience, and I can only speak for myself, is that it's such an amazing feeling when you pick up the phone and you talk to them and you just say, you know what, I'm thinking about you, and I know that we're not really speaking anymore, or things went wrong, but I just want you to know that I only wish you the best, and I have no hard feelings against you, and I forgive what you did, and it's in the past, and I'm going to walk away from it learning something about myself. And everything in life is an opportunity to create light. It's up to you to take that experience and find the nekudat tova, the point of goodness that can be extracted from it. And the harder it is, the greater the light that's coming your way, Terry, for doing it.
Terry, I read a lot about this particular type of thing, and I got the book from you, and I can't remember what the name of it was, but one of the things that was key was praying for those people or that particular person.
In my mind, I forgive them. I mean, I'm thinking of the family member I haven't spoken to them in years.
Right, but just that's the when you can't really get past or whatever, just pray for them. And I mean, in my personal experience, I found that was very, it was healing and it was liberating, and that was the best I could do, and it was positive.
That
so
resonates.
that's just my
This person. And it was all so
short as neatly as possible in a way that whatever language you guys can speak, that can be kind of neutral. And you can go your way. You know, some people just make you bring out different sides of your own personality kind of thing. So, you know, you want to think of yourself.
Thank you, Sharon. I like that too. I actually went to a Jewish meditation class once, just once. It was enough for me. But it was so beautiful. They did this one thing that was exactly that. It's basically sending out good energy to people that you don't like or you don't get along with, and just it's more for you than for them. Just that process of like letting go of it and just wanting to release that negativity is so healing. That in of itself is worth it more than having to deal with them. Yeah.
Rina, like what if, you know, reaching out to somebody who you have a bad relationship with is going to get you caught up in the cycle of crazy? You know?
I don't know. I really don't. I think everyone has to use their judgment, but I think it's important, and you need to know your level of engagement with that person. But I think it's really important to at least reach out, and you'll be surprised at how moved people will be by just that act of you reaching out, just picking up the phone, and that you mean well, that you only want good for them, even though all that stuff in the past, and it's up to you that level of how much of the interaction you want with them, but the fact that you actually mean well, I think goes really far.
I also want to just say that you can send a card.
Great. To not open up that door.
Yeah, I'll add to that. Like, you know, you have to know who you're dealing with, and some people will take the smallest opportunity and use it as a way to just kind of like force their way back into your life. If you don't want that, then you have to know who you're dealing with and how you left it. And if you left it fine, then you know, or if you've given it everything you have, and they know deep down you wish them the best, but the way that it's worked out, it's just this is how the cards fell. Then for me, I think that's doing, you did the work, and you also, there's an act of self-preservation in there. Like you have to, an act of self-care and self-love is also surrounding yourself with the right people, making your effort, but when that effort is through, also being adult and mature enough to say, okay, and that's that.
Yeah. Sounds good. Okay, so we'll wrap it up because we said half an hour, right? Okay. So
it looks like everybody's engaged.
okay, good. What's that? Another hour. The guys are coming in here in half an hour. They're learning with Rabbi Demba. Yeah, otherwise I would go for another hour.
They moved to the seminar.
Okay.
Okay, so we have an hour.
Slumber party!
So I want to give us all an opportunity to share. So before we get to that, I want to give you homework. One of the things that I've been doing for the last few years is keeping a journal, an Elul journal. So there's a phenomenal book that I'm sure a few of you have heard of, if not most of you, is Simon Jacobson's The 60-Day Journey. Has anyone heard of it? No? He's amazing. He's so good. He's a Chabad rabbi. He used to be the Choser of the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, which basically means he's a genius. And he had to remember all of the Rebbe's discourses over Shabbos and then write them out the next day. He wrote that book, Towards a Meaningful Life. So he has a book that's amazing. It's from Elul all the way to Simchas Torah, and every day there's a particular learning for that day with an assignment, and you're supposed to keep a journal parallel to that, which is basically everything we've been talking about, which is all of the spiritual cleansing, the cheshbon nefesh. So I recommend that you all get on his email list, because he just started sending them out. So instead of getting the book, you get the email. And I'll send you all a link. And it's amazing. It's short, to the point. It gives you a consciousness for the day, and then it gives you an exercise. So we'll talk later about an exercise that you could do for today, but just to give you a sampling of what could be, if you wanted to do journaling on your own, what you could focus on. So the first thing, I think that when people think about the year ahead, people think about health, good health. So I think it's important to think about, okay, your physical well-being. Am I happy with my health? Is there something I can do? Can I exercise more? Can I eat better? Can I be more conscious in my health choices? So I think that, that gets put aside a lot with spirituality, but I think that physicality feeds spirituality, and it's important to be health conscious physically. So that's something that you could work on. Your emotional well-being. Are you stressed out? Do you have anxiety? I feel like I sound like a commercial. Right? Yeah, so I think we all have natural healthy anxiety and healthy stress, but just to gauge where you're at and really think about where you want to be. We should all be happy. Hashem should bless us all to always be satisfied and full and happy and living in peacefulness, not only for us, but all of Israel and all the Jews everywhere. And the whole world, actually, everywhere. Everyone should be happy and peaceful. So to take time out and think about where are you at with your emotions, how are you with your relationships with other people? Do you have anger issues? Do you have a way of being impatient? What are personality traits that you really want to get working on? Then think about your spiritual self. Do you want to daven more? Do you want to learn more? Do you want to stop talking Lashon Hara? Do you want to take on some sort of chesed project? Just to really think about, if you had all the time in the world and all the money in the world and nothing could stop you, what would be your vision for yourself? And just really fly with it and really set the intentions and visualize and just close your eyes and use your imagination and just think of your best life now. What would be your best life now? And really feed that. What I've always learned is it's helpful to, I'm a visual learner. So for me, I love painting or drawing things that I want, even though if they're like with markers or whatever, they don't have to be the best thing, but just having a picture of what you want and putting it on your fridge, and that's just that constant reminder. I think visually it's important to have something that reminds you of what you want. So I'm looking at Sharon, so I'm thinking arts and crafts, so maybe a vision board. Maybe we could have a vision board party where where we just all bring things and just create a vision board for our year ahead. What are the things that we want for our families, for the Jewish people, for ourselves, and really make it concrete and tangible. What else? So this is my favorite, and when I look at Peraldina, I think of this because I haven't been to your class as much as I would like to be, and that's one of my intentions for the year ahead is to go to your class more. But I do remember we were learning a very beautiful text about davening and talking to Hashem, which was just so powerful and so beautiful. And it's a real honor to you that you're able to create this space to learn such a holy book. And that, God willing, you should be blessed to teach many more people and deeper teachings and just reach the highest of the levels of connection to Hashem. So you taught us about talking to Hashem every day in your own words. Hidbodadu. And I definitely need to do that more. And I think that it's such a real personal, connecting way of experiencing God. I think so much of the way that we relate to Hashem is intellectual, and I think it's so powerful. I think that's the essence of Kabbalah and why I really love learning Kabbalah so much is that it's really guiding you towards an experience of Hashem and really integrating Hashem into your life in a tangible way, not just in an intellectual way, but to really experience Hashem in your life, guiding your life. And I think that talking to God and just taking time out to have a conversation in your own words. I know we've all done it. And I actually have to share a story with you that happened yesterday at the bracha party that I went to. So there was a woman who was engaged to get married. And 2 weeks, she was 30 years old. And 2 weeks before she got married, the chatan canceled. Yeah. And she was super depressed because she got rid of her job, her apartment. She was gonna move. She was staying at her parents, waiting to get married and move to her husband's, her future, wasn't future, and needless to say, she was heartbroken and she didn't know what to do. So she was going through some stuff, you know, like when people move, they always go through stuff. And she found a New York Times edition from, do you know the story? Do you know what I'm talking about? Oh, because you know her. And
You know the story.
You know the story. You were there. Lisa was there. And it was from like 10 years ago. And she was like, this is weird. Why am I keeping a New York Times article from like 10 years ago? So she was like, you know what, I'll hold on to it. I'll tell you what was in that paper in a little bit. So she holds on to that. Yes, now you know. You guys know her. So she holds on to it and she decides that she has a talk with Hashem. And she says, Hashem, I don't know what to do. Like she was super lost. And she said, show me where to go. She said, I would go to New York if I had a free place to stay in the Upper West Side, and I had Parnassa, and I wouldn't have to worry, and everything would be ready to go. That was her deal with God. She said, if you show me that, then I'll go to New York, and that was going to be her plan. So that day, her friend of hers called her, who was in New York, who just gave birth to a baby, and she was going nuts because she couldn't find a nanny. And so she was telling her how she desperately needs a nanny just for 3 months because she found a great nanny, but that nanny is not available for another 3 months. So she's like, okay, I'll take that job. So she moves to New York and she meets a guy, and they move in together, and they're married. Thank God they got married. And when they move into the new house, she sees that paper. And that paper was when the Rebbe of Lubavitch passed away in 1994. And it was at his funeral. And in that picture, she saw her husband. Her husband was in that picture. And she never knew why she held on to that New York Times article. She just always felt like she was like not religious. She was not Chabad. She didn't know why she had that. And then it was just like there was something about it, and it's almost like whatever. There was Hashgacha Pratis, obviously, but this woman definitely lived that life of talking to Hashem. That was what got her through such a horrible experience. And I think that when we get so caught up with the religiosity of being Jewish that we forget that the essence of being Jewish is really just like connecting from our hearts. And when we speak from the heart, Hashem responds. So I bless us all that we should have an amazing year ahead, and that we should make the most out of this awesome month to really connect with who we are and set an intention and the vision for our year ahead, for us, for our family, for Am Yisrael, for Eretz Yisrael, for Mashiach to come now. Really, like, it, you know, I take comfort in the words of the Ari that the darker it is, the more light is coming. And we really need to be hopeful. And as women, we have that power to bring the Mashiach and to transform the darkness into the light. And we need to use our power. Our power is speech. And what we're doing here and being here, learning Torah and davening and talking to Hashem is the most powerful tikkun that we can do for the entire world, is healing the world with our prayers and with our words. And God willing, this should be the year that we should all be in Jerusalem with Mashiach. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Rina. That was very, I came here, I was so depleted and so exhausted, and I feel very energized. Speaking of davening, for those of you who have an extra 10 minutes, I have to healing here. There's someone in our community who really needs HaKadosh Baruch Hu's help, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's mercy for Refuah Shalema. So if you can say to healing, that would help. If you can't,